Thank you, witnesses. I've heard repeatedly comments from my colleagues that no one here on the committee is advocating for fraud. I agree. I don't think fraud is acceptable to a single Democrat or Republican. But if we're going to talk about the facts, the fact is there was $1 trillion still unspent from the previous COVID relief package that was bipartisan. There were several bipartisan relief packages that we worked on together. And the Democrats, my colleagues, went alone with $2 trillion. And the facts are, we repeatedly warned them about not including guardrails, the ounce of prevention that would be the cure for pounds, tens, if not hundreds of billions of dollars in improper payments and fraud and waste. And they did not heed, not a single amendment. I mean, we must have had hundreds of amendments. Not one amendment was taken. I understand their commitment, and I understand the extenuating circumstances. And I, quite frankly, understand the need for speed and some of the mess that comes with that. But we were way down the road from needing to rush something when we had $1 trillion still unspent, and we had learned from the previous mistake of paying people too much, where they were literally perversely incentivized to stay at home and off the payroll. That was a mistake, but it wasn't acknowledged. It wasn't included in our counsel, and that was a huge mistake. And there weren't guardrails so that we could get ahead of this on the front end. We knew there was a lot of money, and we knew that with 150 some odd billion dollars in improper payments already, as has been discussed, this was going to be a disastrous waste of taxpayer money. That is poor stewardship. It just is. So there's a saying out that used to be on a sign outside of our former head football coach's office at Texas Tech, the great Mike Leach. And it said, you're either coaching it or allowing it to happen. It's a statement of accountability. You're either coaching it directly or you're indirectly allowing it to happen. So, yeah, I don't think that any of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle advocate for fraud, but they allowed it to happen. And they didn't take our common sense counsel because they wanted to jam a partisan bill, no matter how good their intentions were, through the process, and taxpayers have paid mightily. Were people helped? Sure. I'm certain there were. You can't throw $1 trillion almost at a problem and not help somebody, for heaven's sakes. That's not the question. The question is, are we acting as leaders of the greatest country in the world and as stewards on behalf of the greatest people in the world? The answer in this regard is no, we failed. I'm sure my party has had their shortcomings along the way, and I will try to readily concede when we do. That was a failure on your part. Let's not repeat it. For heaven's sakes, can't we agree on just that fact if we're concerned about facts? The facts are that we turned the trampoline into a trap and the safety net into a hammock because of these policies. I got 43 seconds. The debt is amassing at an alarming rate. A crisis related will be catastrophic. Mr. Dodaro, you know that as well as anybody on this dais. We have to recoup this money. Every year I hear the same numbers. We got to get our arms around the 150 or the 160. In 2021, it's 280 billion. But nothing ever happens. What are we going to do to recoup America's hard-earned money so that we can help reduce the spend, bend the debt curve, and save this country from a much bigger crisis than what we've experienced even in the pandemic and maybe even any crisis to date.